As a parent, I frequently found myself taking advantage of those teachable moments, especially when my children were young. However, there were many times when the tables were turned, and I was the one learning the lesson. Emily Diefendorf taught her father, Roey, a 30-year MDRT member with 4 quarter-of-the-table and 4 top-of-the-table qualifications, a lesson that will stay with him forever. Please welcome Emily and Roey Diefendorf.
Hi, I'm Emily. This story started when I read a book my dad wrote entitled Three-Dimensional Wealth. I was a junior in high school when he finished writing it. It was a culmination of his life's journey that was inspired by the $1 Million Round Table and its whole person concept. I, too, wanted to experience firsthand how to create my own personal, financial, and social wealth in order to make a difference and change the world. One day, as I returned home from school, I read a letter sent to my dad that was written by Greer Kendall, a former top-of-the-table member. And in this letter, Greer was asking for donations to buy shoes for the orphans in Zambia. Each pair of shoes was only $4.50, so I decided that I wanted to send 100 pairs of shoes to Zambia. Well, that night I asked my dad, "Dad, can I buy 100 pairs of shoes?" 100 pairs of shoes, he said. What could you possibly want with 100 pairs of shoes? I told him it wasn't for me, but for the orphans in Zambia. Dad asked, "How much are the shoes?" I said, "Only $4.50 a pair." Dad said, "$450? Is that what you'd like to do with your funds?" "Yep, that's what I want to do." You see, earlier that year, my dad set up a family charitable fund, and I was given a $500 granting authority for that year. I was so glad I could actually make that contribution myself. So that night, I went online to our family's charitable website and sent $450 to Family Legacy Missions International from 100 pairs of shoes from Emily. However, merely a financial contribution seemed very one-dimensional to me. So I asked my mom and dad if they thought I could actually go to Africa and personally hand out the shoes. Now, this was a much more difficult hurdle to get over, but I handled each of my parents' objections one by one and ultimately closed the sale. So I spent 2 weeks in July with the Zambian orphans. And on day 4, we had Shoe Day. We handed out shoes to every child, many of whom had never even owned a pair of shoes and had walked miles in bare feet just to be with us. And experiencing this gave me an entirely new perspective on the cultural differences at home and abroad. What a moving experience. I remember getting off the plane at Kennedy Airport like it was yesterday.
"Hey, Em, how was it?"
Best day of my life.
"What was?"
The day we handed out the shoes.
Well, the story about the kids receiving their shoes was unbelievable. But the real story is not just about how these orphans' lives were changed because of their new shoes. It's also about Emily. Emily has been changed forever. Shoes will come and go, but the heart of one child has been supersized. For her to understand that one person can make a difference is the best $450 investment a dad could ever make. You know, if Emily had asked me for $450 for a pair of shoes for the senior prom, I probably would have bought it for her. But she didn't. She wanted to give them to others. Well, I met Emily at the airport after her third trip to Africa. "Hey, Em, how was it?"
Best week of my life.
"Best week?"
Dad, I'm telling you, you got to come with us next year. I promise it will change your life.
Well, that's a pretty big promise, but if you're so convinced, I'll go next year with you, and I'll bring the whole family.
So on my fourth trip and Dad's first trip to Lusaka, Zambia, we joined 83 other American volunteers with the Family Legacy Missions International organization. Our goal for that week was to communicate to the orphans that they are loved, accepted, secure, significant, victorious, and that there is a hope for their future. For those 5 days, each of the 5 Diefendorfs worked with 14 to 18 orphans, and from day to day, I could actually see the change in the kids. We spent time with them, teaching them in small groups and on a one-to-one basis, as they shared in depth about their lives.
Well, one of my guys, Roy Bank, is a single orphan whose father was murdered in a witchcraft ritual. And when I asked him what he wanted most, he quickly said, "Pray that our village might change." And throughout the week, Roy Bank's words continue to haunt me. I also kept thinking about Emily's promise. This will change your life. Well, Felix, like Roy Bank, is from the village of Kalikiliki. Felix is a single orphan whose mother died of AIDS and whose father is the caregiver for him and his 7 brothers and sisters. Felix is the only one of his family to go to school. However, his education was coming to an end as his family was out of money. My translator told me that the tuition was delinquent. The semester's tuition due? Only $6. Needless to say, Family Legacy Mission solved that problem and paid Felix's tuition along with the other 75 orphans for the whole year. Well, day 4 arrived. It was shoe day. And this particular day, we gave away 1,000 pair of shoes. And over the course of the summer, Family Legacy had orchestrated the distribution of over 7,000 pair of shoes. And having witnessed the joy on the kids' faces, I can understand why Emily said it was the best day of her life.
That afternoon, my family took a walking tour with our 76 kids to Roy Bank's village of Kalikiliki. Now, this compound was a stroll back in time 2,000 years. Lacking running water and electricity, the narrow dirt streets were lined with both children and adults. With a 70% unemployment rate, there's virtually nothing to do but hang out. And as our group of kids led us from home to home, I could see the reaction to my own family to the horrendous conditions. Throughout the week, our 76 orphans with whom our family interacted were all very excited to tell their friends and families what they had learned. And their friends and families were very interested, too, to hear their stories. But this week's venture into philanthropy was as meaningful for our family as it was for the orphans. However, time seemed to be running out for this week to be the life-changing event I had promised my dad.
Well, Friday morning approached as 997 orphans, 86 American volunteers, and 120 Zambian volunteers crowded into this makeshift auditorium. And from my position, I could look over and see my whole family working together. This is what I've been praying about for 30 years. And I looked over and I saw my wife, Chris, and I saw my daughters surrounded by kids singing. I said, doesn't get any better than this. I said, this is what three-dimensional wealth looks like. And the next thing that happened blew me away. In the middle of this group, a hand went up. And out of the 1,000, a 5-year-old girl stepped forward to speak. And what I saw was amazing. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. She has no education, no position, no power, no status, and in her culture, as a female orphan, she has little value. Yet that day, she had a great deal of influence. Despite having nothing, she had the world. This girl emitted a radiance of hope and joy and life that surpassed mine. In that moment, my life had changed. I realized that it's not about my education or my position. It's not about my money or my top-of-the-table status, but it's about my heart. And sometimes the things that we perceive as important blind us from what really matters in life. I tell you the truth, if you and I would have the heart of a child like this one, we too would have influence, significance, and purpose. Well, Emily's promise to me had been fulfilled by the least likely in the whole assembly, a 5-year-old Zambian orphan. Well, I love the MDRT. It's where I first learned about the whole person concept. It's where I learned that giving to and sharing with others increases you as a person. And the emphasis on philanthropy through programs like the MDRT Foundation gives us real-life examples of helping others. This is what we should bring back to our families and communities. The journey that my family is on has solidified our core values, has unified our philanthropic efforts, and has illustrated to each of our 4 daughters that one person can make a difference, and together we can change the world. Thank you.
My mom, Dad, and I are going back to Africa next month to continue where we left off last year. We're going to be there when the new 110-acre orphanage opens. It will include permanent housing for 300 orphans, facilities for 1,250 daily campers, a school, a medical clinic, a pharmacy, and all of this plus 3-dimensional sponsorship, personal, financial, and social, for 5,000 orphans in their local villages like Kilikiliki. And I believe that our family is making a difference by changing the lives of the orphans in Kilikiliki, Zambia. Who would have thought that a pair of shoes would have blossomed into such a life-changing event for my whole family? So, what does this mean for you? I challenge each of you, when you get home, sit down with your family and establish charitable endeavors that you can become involved in as a family. And the ages of your family members don't matter, so don't put it off. I guarantee it will change your life and the lives of others. Thank you. Nikomo Kwambiri.